In this video, I'm going to talk about Accusnap settings. You can access Accusnap from the snap bar on the right hand side of MicroStation DGN file. I'm going to drag the snap bar into my active work area. I can turn on or off my Accusnap by clicking on this toggle here in the snap bar. You can access Accusnap settings by right clicking on the Accusnap toggle and selecting settings in the pop-up menu. You can also access Accusnap settings by going to settings menu in MicroStation by selecting snaps command and selecting Accusnap from in there. Accusnap settings are organized into three categories: general, elements, and fill. Underneath the general tab, you have the option to enable Accusnap or disable Accusnap. When you have the checkbox next to show tentative hint enabled, you'll see that a white crosshair gets displayed as I move along an element. This is the tentative hint. If I have it turned off and I move along an element, you won't see the white crosshair anymore. My current running snap is set to keep on snap. So I'm going to turn this on, show tentative hint, and I'm going to hover over an element. You'll see a white crosshair on the screen. This is the tentative hint. Display snap icons. As you've seen previously, when I hover over and snap or tentatively snap onto an element, you see a yellow crosshair with the image of the active snap that is used to get that tentative point. If I have the display snap icons turned off, you won't see the picture along with the snap. Update status bar coordinates. When you have this checkbox turned on, as I tentatively snap to an element, those coordinates are sent to the status bar. They're over here. They get updated as I snap onto a different point automatically. That is what the update status bar coordinates checkbox does. I'm going to turn it off now. Play sound on snap plays a sound when you have tentatively snapped onto an element in MicroStation. As you could hear it right now. Highlight active element allows MicroStation, as I pass my cursor over an element, to highlight it automatically. Identify elements automatically. This is going to be useful when I pass over an element and a snap is obtained. It automatically highlights the element. Sometimes it's something that that is going to be annoying if you have a lot of elements in your drawing that are laid on top of each other, and you'll see a lot of highlighting happening in your screen. So this is where you can turn it off if you don't want to have elements automatically highlighted for you. Enable for fence create. This option lets you have Accusnap enabled when you're creating a fence. I'm going to get into the fence command right now. I'm going to create a fence without the checkbox turned on. And I'm going to be hovering over one of the endpoints of this rectangle. You can see that it is now not actually snapping onto the endpoint. I'm going to turn this on now, and I'm going to repeat the fence command one more time. I'm going to get closer to the endpoint of the rectangle. It is actually snapping onto the endpoint there. That is what enable for fence create does. Pop-up info gives you the option to display a pop-up with information about the element when I hover over it. When I have it turned off and hover over an element, nothing gets displayed. You also have the option to only display that pop-up when you have obtained a tentative snap. In this case, I'm going to use the middle mouse button and snap onto the endpoint. That is when I get the pop-up info displayed on the screen. You can also control how long of a delay you can allow before the pop-up dialog shows up. Moving on to the Elements tab. Turn snapping for section underneath the Elements tab. If I turn off my snapping for curves while I'm in a command, Accusnap is not going to work for a B-spline curve. That is what this setting allows me to work with. If I have this on and I hover over a B-spline curve, you can see Accusnap is getting tentative snaps for me as I get closer to the element, or I'm getting the possible snap locations identified on the screen. Dimensions checkbox, when it is on, lets me snap onto dimensions. Text lets me snap onto text. Meshes, it lets me snap onto mesh objects in the drawing. Find element by. If I have the interior of filled elements checkbox turned on, and if I'm in a command, Accusnap snaps onto the interior of this filled element that I have in my DGN file. If I have it turned off, it won't be able to snap onto the interior of this filled element. Sort hits by element class. allows you to snap when you have multiple objects sitting on top of each other. The primary elements are selected first, followed by the construction element, followed by patterns, and then by dimension elements. This is how Accusnap snaps onto those objects based on the kind of elements that are in the drawing. The Field tab contains controls that affect Accusnap's sensitivity in locating elements. Key point sensitivity. It allows the user to adjust how close the cursor must be to tentatively snap to a key point. If you move the key point sensitivity slider to the right, you get the option to be a little bit away and still obtain a tentative snap from one of these key points. If I move it all the way to the left, then I got to be really close or on top before I obtain a tentative snap. I'm going to set it back to the way it is originally. Stickiness. It allows the user to adjust the sensitivity of Accusnap to the current element. When snap to an element and you move the cursor along the element, a slider lets you control how far you can get away from the element before it snaps on to another element that's crossing it or near it. If I'm going to move the slider all the way to the left and I've obtained a tentative snap and I move along my element, as soon as I start moving away from it, I lost the stickiness to it, and then it's more prone to snapping onto the other elements that are nearby. As I get closer, it snaps onto the key points on my curve. If I move the slider all the way to the right, it gives me the flexibility to be slightly away and be able to still maintain the lock with the element and obtain a tentative snap to it. I'm going to set it back to the way it is previously. Snap tolerance allows the user to adjust how close the cursor must be to an element in order to obtain a tentative point snap to it. I'm going to move the snap tolerance slider all the way to the left hand side, and I'm going to hover over one of the endpoints of the curve. You see I've obtained an endpoint snap. Because of my setting, it's forcing me to literally be on top of the element or near the key point in order for me to get a tentative snap to it. If I move the slider all the way to the right hand side, then I can be reasonably close to the endpoint of the object and obtain a tentative snap to it. Now I'm going to close the Accusnap settings dialog, and I'm going to talk about another important setting that users should be aware of when working with the Accusnap. I have my key point snap as my running snap right now. This is active. When I hover over an object, it's actually giving me 3 points to snap onto. So it's dividing the line that I have into two halves. I'm getting the endpoint snaps and the midpoint snap. This is controlled from the settings menu, locks, and by clicking on the full command in here, you'll see the locks dialog box show up. Under the snap section, snap lock is on and the mode is key point snap. That is the active snap that I have right now. The divisor is 2. So the Accusnap is going to divide the element that I'm hovering over into 2 parts. I can change this by setting it to 4, and when I hover over my element, it's actually dividing it into 4 parts now. As you can see, I'm getting multiple snap points right now compared to when I was using the divisor 2. So I'm going to go back to settings menu and go back to click on the full command and set it back to 2. The same thing applies when I hover over a circle. Each quadrant is divided into 2 parts along the circle. I can change the number of key points or the parts. Each segment is divided by going into settings, locks, full, and then choosing a different divisor in there. Now I'm going to be using 4 again. I'm going to hover over my circle, and as you can see, I have each quadrant divided into 4 parts. This concludes the demonstration.